Welcome, everyone. Welcome to our talk on onions and garlic. We're happy to have you here. My name is Traver. I have the wonderful pleasure of introducing our expert and speaker today, Guy Duran. I'll share a little bit about Guy before he takes it away to share all of his expertise on onions and garlic. So Guy Duran first arrived in California in 1976, originally hailing from New Milford, Connecticut. He believes his inspiration toward gardening came from his grandmother, who kept a lovely vegetable garden. Then a child, Guy would always hear the grown-ups talking about Grandma's garden. Since then, he's never forgotten how his grandma's garden and over the years. He's dabbled in vegetable gardening on and off, but never consistent enough to actually gain a lot of experience. In 2010, he retired from his full-time job and earnestly started to garden full-time with his own gardens, as well as working part-time in gardening jobs. He found himself enjoying gardening so much that he decided to revolve his current life mainly around gardening. And to that end, he applied to and was accepted into the Master Gardener program in 2016. He's here today speaking to you about onions because the one thing he likes doing more than gardening is teaching someone how to garden. Take it away, Guy.
Thank you, Traver. I'd like to welcome everyone. It's really a pleasure to be here today and to hopefully share some of my experience, particularly with onions. So we will, try to make sure everyone stays muted, of course. And if you have some questions, please type them into the chat box. You can do that at any time, but you type in the chat box and hopefully we'll get to as many of them as we can after. Our mission is to extend research-based knowledge and information on home horticulture and management and sustainable landscape practices to the residents of California and to be guided by our core values and strategic initiatives. Okay, so this is a mission statement for the Master Gardeners. And I'm going to hide the video panel there. All right. Okay. Garlic. I'm not going to get into garlic a lot. Onions are a lot more involved. So, Traver, let's start with poll number 1 before we even get started into garlic. We're going to have several polls for you. You can click on the poll. This particular poll is just, we want to gauge your gardening experience. So are you new, fairly new, mid-level, expert? Go ahead and type that in. All right. This is good. I'm seeing a lot of mid-level people here. That's great. Okay, Trevor, I think I have an idea on that. You can go ahead and take that down. Looks like most of you have mid-level experience. That's good. Trevor, can you put up poll number 2? All right. So we're going to ask you guys, have you grown garlic before? That's an easy yes or no question. And I'd like to know, where did you buy your garlic? Was it certified seed stock? Was it from the grocery store? Or was it from other? So it looks like a lot of people have grown garlic before, but, and it's kind of split between seed stock and grocery store. That's good information, good to know. All right, and before we get into garlic, we're gonna take our last polling, our third polling question in regards to garlic. Trevor, could you put up the third poll? All right. And you can take that poll down. I got ahead of myself. Okay, let's talk about garlic. There's two types of garlic. We have soft neck garlic and hard neck garlic. Soft neck garlic is common in grocery stores, has mild flavor, stores well. Almost all the garlic you buy in grocery stores is soft neck garlic. Common varieties are California early, California late. For hardneck garlic, you'll see this stem coming right up through. That will continue up. It will actually form a hard stem. And this type of garlic is closer to wild garlic. It has more complex flavors. Also doesn't store as well, which is probably why most grocery stores carry soft neck garlic. It stores a lot better. There's also elephant garlic, which technically is not garlic, it's in the leek family. I won't be talking about elephant garlic. These are the two main garlics that I grow. Now, for garlic, you get a clove, you get the bulb like this, and then of course you peel off the cloves. And there is a right way and a wrong way. The wrong way, right here is where the roots come out. So if you plant it this way, it will grow upside down. So the roots here have to be down, and this little pointy tip, that has to be up. For this area, you can plant garlic easily anytime. October through December is fine. You can plant garlic after that too, but it likes, you'll run into warmer weather. And if you plant garlic after that, your garlic will push into your summer garden, right? So you want your garlic to be done by the time you plant your summer garden. And if in that case, you should plant it between October and December. Now, how deep to plant? Just like this picture, you do not have to bury that clove. You can stick it in halfway and that's fine. When to harvest? Well, usually it takes 4 or 5 months, okay, depending on growing conditions. There are a lot of things that can vary your growing condition, your watering, how much light there was, how much heat there was. So there are things that can change your growing conditions, change how long your plant takes to mature. But typically 4 to 5 months is what it takes. And keep in mind, when you plant garlic, you can just stick a clove in the ground, any free spot you have. You don't have to have like a patch of garlic. But if you have a patch, that's fine too. So you grow your onion for 4 or 5 months, and the leaves will start to turn brown. And pretty much when you see your leaves turning brown, that's when you want to kind of push the dirt away a little bit and see if you get a bulb forming. And if you have a nice bulb forming, you can pull it out at any time. I like to let my garlic dry on the ground for a few days. And then my hardneck garlic, I tie up just like this picture on the left here. I tie my hardneck garlic up and I hang it up in my garage. Pretty much just like this. And when I'm ready, I can take these down and I'll cut the roots off, clean them up after they're nice and good and dry. Or I can just leave them hanging up in the garage just like this. You can't braid hardneck garlic because it's got this stiff stem. So this picture on the right is softneck garlic. And garlic is a lot of fun to braid if you haven't done it. You can find plenty of videos on YouTube to teach you how to do that. And so here's the thing about garlic. Just pretty much anybody can grow garlic. In your kitchen, if your garlic starts to grow, you can just take that outside and stick it in the ground halfway somewhere. It'll grow. As a master gardener, I do recommend that when you plant garlic, you buy certified seed stock. But personally, that's what we recommend. That's what I recommend. But for myself, I don't really buy certified seed stock. I buy garlic at the grocery store. I plant a lot of garlic. So I'll plant 400-500, plants of garlic easily. And that's a lot of garlic. So I get a lot of my garlic at 99 cents only. And it works out fine. I get 4 or 5 bulbs in a pack for $1. And I have success with that. But again, if you want the best way is to buy certified seed stock garlic at a nursery or online. Okay. All right. That pretty much wraps it up for onions. For garlic, sorry. For onions, we're going to start with the next poll. Trevor, if you could put up the next poll concerning onions. In this poll, we're just going to ask you if you've grown onions before. And if you did, what percentage of your onions went to seed? Okay, and could we see the results on that, Trevor? Thank you. So it looks like a lot of you have grown onions. And not too many of you were completely successful, which is not surprising. So onions are not hard to grow per se. You can take the polling results down now, Trevor. Thank you. Onions are not hard to grow per se, but to really get a nice bulb that you can use in your kitchen, that's a different story. All right, we're gonna do, I think, one more poll. The next poll, Trevor. All right. This is going to ask you a specific question. Have you ever grown Walla Walla onions? Okay, you can put up the results for that. All right, well, that's a little surprising to me because a lot of people focus on Walla Wallas, and we're going to talk about Walla Walla onions. That's why I wanted to ask you this question, but we're going to get to that a little later in the slides. Okay, you can take the polling results down. Thank you. Okay, let's get started here. I like to grow onions, and so we'll talk a little bit about onion growth cycle, what's available to plant, how to plant, and when to harvest. That's me with onions from a couple of years ago. And I say I like to grow onions. I like to grow them by the wheelbarrow. And if you think I'm kidding, I'm not. That's me harvesting my onions. Those are all 2 3-pound onions. Okay, so why am I able to grow onions? Well, first of all, let's start by understanding the growth cycle of an onion. Onions are biannual, which means that the first year, they grow a bulb, hopefully, this thing right here, okay? And then at the end of the first year, in nature, they just go dormant. They go to sleep. They overwinter. Next spring, lo and behold, the plant takes all the energy that it's stored in this bulb, and it regrows again. And the purpose for the second growth is to make seeds. And that's what you're seeing right here. So obviously we want this picture on the top and not this picture on the bottom. Well, in order to understand why you can grow onions and not grow onions in some areas, you have to understand that onions are photosensitive. This is very key to growing onions. What this means is that you say you plant an onion and it grows, and all of a sudden at a certain time, it starts to form a bulb. Well, why did it start to form a bulb? Was it because it reached, it got 3 months old and decided it was old enough? No. Was it because it's because of the daylight. It's because of the hours. So there are 3 types of onions, and most people don't know this. There are short day onions, there are intermediate day onions, and then there are long day onions. And each of these onions developed in different parts of the country, different parts of the world. And it all had to do with how much daylight hours that your onions receive. So the trigger for the bulb to say, okay, the trigger for the onion to say, oh, I need to start making a bulb. It's dependent on the amount of hours in the daylight. So for our area in particular, we're intermediate day. So we plant onions, and we plant onion, let's say you plant onion in December. The days are, I don't know, 11 hours, 10 hours, 11 hours, 12 hours of daylight maybe, but you don't get a whole lot of daylight in the winter time, okay? All right. So as spring progresses, the days get longer and longer and longer. All right. Well, when the days in our area reach 12 to 14 hours of daylight, that's what tells the onion, oh, it's getting on here. I better start making a bulb. All right. If you're in a long day area of the country, you need long days. This onion is, if you planted long day onions, that onion is not going to form a bulb. It's not even going to think about forming a bulb till you can have 14 hours of daylight in a day. So where would you plant a short day onion? Well, Texas. Where would you plant an intermediate day onion? Here. Where would you plant a long day onion? That would be up here in Seattle, okay? So here's the United States. This area down here is all for short day onions. In the middle here is intermediate day. And up here is long day. So to clarify one more thing here, if you live down here in Texas somewhere, on the summer solstice, which is the longest day of the year, you only have 14 hours and 18 minutes of daylight. If you live in the Bay Area, you have 14 hours and 45 minutes. And if you live in Seattle up here, you actually have 15 hours and 58 minutes, okay? So what that means is I'm going to go back to the Walla Wallas, okay? Because Walla Walla is actually a name of a town or city or whatever. It's Walla Walla, Washington. Okay, that's way up there where the days are really long, and that's where Walla Wallas are grown. So Walla Wallas need 14 to 16 hours of daylight in order for them to form a bulb. So what happens if you plant Walla Wallas here in this area? They don't get the amount of daylight that they need. So what happens when an onion is faced with a controversy, it doesn't know what to do? It's going to go to seed. It's going to say, I just want to make seeds. I want to get out of here. So that's what's going on here. This is actual Walla Walla onions that I planted. And as you know, I can grow onions pretty successfully, but I did a lot of trials. I planted Walla Wallas because when you go to the nursery, you won't be surprised if you see Walla Wallas for sale. And it's very disappointing because really Walla Wallas are not made for this area. All right, let's talk about what you should buy. Now that you know, now that you've all written down somewhere or made a mental note that if you're going to plant onions, you need to make sure that they are intermediate day onions. And if you go to the nursery and you're buying onions and you ask the guy, are these intermediate day onions, and he can't tell you, I would get the heck out of there. Don't buy those. So what can you buy? Well, here's what's available for purchase. Everybody's seen these little onion sets here. You can get those. Those are not recommended by me. You can buy onion seedlings. And that's this little picture down here, these little seedlings. They're called onion seedlings, onion starts. Okay? They're called slips, onion slips. You can buy these online, or you can buy these sometimes in nurseries, your local nurseries. You have to go in at the right time of the year. Around here, that would be probably November to start looking for them. But again, if you find these, check the name. Check to see if they're intermediate day onions. You can also plant onions from seed, and that's also recommended. Now, here's a seed packet. If you look right here, you see where it says intermediate day. You know how many seed packets I've picked up And I'm looking all over that seed packet, front, back, everywhere. I'm reading all the fine print. I can't see nothing that tells me if it's a short day, an intermediate day, or a long day. So again, if it doesn't specify, I won't waste my time. Okay, because why would you want to, you know, spend several months grow onions, and this is what you get. If you look down here, there's no bulbs. All of the energy that this plant is producing is going, all it wants to do is make seeds. It doesn't care about making a bulb. So onion sets are not recommended. Onion seedlings are recommended. Onion seeds are recommended. Why not onion sets? This is like the first thing that people plant, because this is the thing you find everywhere. You'll find these at the box stores. You'll find these anywhere. I personally don't know anyone that has ever planted these and ended up with a 2-pound onion. And the reason why is because these onion sets that you're buying, these were planted, these were grown for a little while, and then they were pulled up, and then they were dried out, and they are now currently in a dormant stage. So usually if an onion goes dormant, it thinks it's gone through a whole season. So when you replant it, as far as this onion is concerned, it's a second season for it. And if it's a second season, it's going to want to do this. It's going to want to make it's going to want to make seeds. It's not going to want to make bulbs. So a lot of people plant these for green onions. That's fine. If you want to pull them early, you can do that. But if you want to be successful, I would not get these bulbs. So if you want to be successful, you really need to buy the seedlings that are already grown, or you need to buy seeds. If you buy seedlings, these are called bare root onions, onion bunches, onion slips, all these different names, but they're all basically just baby onions plants. Okay. Seeds are fine, but here, onion, Walla Walla. Okay. I can buy this in Fremont. I could plant this. You know how long it takes to start an onion from seed from seed to maturity? It takes like 7 or 8 months. So what you don't want to do is spend 8 months of your life growing an onion from seed, having it go to seed. It's a waste of time. So make sure you're buying intermediate day seeds if you're going to go with seed. Now, if you start some seed, you start in early September for our area. What you're looking at right here is a picture that I actually took just a couple of days ago. So these are my onions that I will be transplanting in December. And right now I'm starting these in containers. You can see I use a variety of different sizes. I also start a lot of my seed just directly in the ground in a patch. And then as these mature, when they get to, when we get to December, they should be well enough along to where I can then dig these up and transplant them into the garden. So when to plant? Well, for our area, November through January is fine. One thing is that bigger is not always better when it comes to onion. So I say plant onion seedlings, right? If it's thicker than a pencil, It's not good. I was under the impression, you know, when I was first gardening, oh, this is a bigger seedling, this is better, but it's not necessarily true. Besides the fact that the wrong type of onion will cause it to go to seed if you plant the wrong type of onion in the wrong area, there are a lot of other environmental factors that can cause your onions to what we call bolt. When they bolt, that means that they're going to produce seeds. So just to list a few of those, your starts are too big. That can cause your onions to go to seed. Not enough water, too much water, too hot, too cold. So basically, I could just keep rattling different things. It's anything that causes your onion to feel like it's under stress. It might say to itself, I don't like these conditions. I don't want to go 2 years. I'm going to cut it short. I'm going to go 1 year, and I'm just going to make seeds. Okay, so I want you to know that, because even if you do everything right, even if you get the right seeds or the right starts and you plant them at the right time, onions can be finicky. And for no particular reason that you know of, some of them can start producing seeds. Now, when you plant your seedlings in November or December or January, and right here, by the way, this looks kind of messy, but why? You see this little seedling right here? Okay, that seedling was started in September, and then I planted it in December, and I planted it in this row here. Now, the reason why this row looks so messy is because this is what's commonly called now a no-till garden. So this is almost a 100-foot row here that I have in the field, and I no longer ever rototill this. So I plant these onions in here, they will grow, I'll harvest them out, and then after that, I just put compost back on here, and I won't till the soil. But that's another presentation. I don't want to go down that rabbit hole. So if you do plant in December, don't forget it's cold, all right? So in the summertime, you throw your tomato out there, and wow, in a week you see it growing. Not going to happen with onions if you plant them in December. Okay, you come back a week later and say, it's not dead, but I don't see anything happening. All right, there is things happening though, and it's happening underground. Okay, you can't see it. So as your winter months, as your winter days go by, you're not going to see a whole lot of growth on the top. As long as it stays green, you'll be in good shape. Roots are developing under the ground. As soon as warm weather starts to come in, then your onions will take off. So for onions are just like any other vegetable. They need light. They need a pretty well-drained soil. You shouldn't plant your onions more than 1 inch deep. Okay, folks, I want to tell you, onions do not grow underground. So don't plant them too deep. If you plant them too deep and that bulb tries to grow underground, it's got to move all that dirt to grow, and you're not going to get a good sized bulb. As you can see in this picture, that bulb pretty much grows on top of the ground. The one next to it hasn't quite developed yet, but it will be like this when it's done. You want to space your onions 8 to 12 inches apart. Now, that's if you want to grow big onions, right? If you have a lot of onion seedlings, you can plant them 4 inches apart, and then as they start to grow, you can pick every other one to use as in a green salad or something. Okay. Main thing is you don't want your bulbs bumping up against one another as they start to develop, and you want to kind of water them in just like any other plant after you put those in. You want to, this is some of my onions here again. This could actually almost be the same row that I showed you earlier at a later date. But as you can see, these onions, you see how they all growing on top of the ground? This is a double row right here. I put 2 rows. Right here is my drip line. I run a drip line right down the middle. So I have 1 drip line that irrigates both of these rows. Now, the thing about onions is just like garlic. It's not, you know, if you plant corn, you have to plant corn in batches for pollination, right? Onions don't have that problem. So you can literally plant an onion all by itself or 2 onions. So you can have a group of onions, or you can walk around your yard wherever you have a free spot and stick an onion plant. For me, I like to grow onions in the front of my house, in the back of my house, and in different areas. So I don't put all my baskets in one area. And it's amazing. I'll have exactly the same seedlings planted in 2 different areas. And for one reason, one area will do real well, and the other area, some of my onions may go to seed. So, also folks, I think I mentioned earlier, just if you have any questions, go ahead and type them into the chat box, okay? We're gonna be getting into some questions pretty soon here. When to harvest? When to harvest is pretty easy. You're gonna go out there, your onion is gonna, you're gonna be wondering, gee, when is my onion gonna be done? Gee, when is my onion gonna be done? And then you're gonna go out one day and all of a sudden, your onion is just gonna plop over just like this. So one day it'll be standing up straight, and all of a sudden the next day, it just plops over. That means that the plant is done. It's done. You can at that point, you can pull it out. Now, there's nothing worse than spending months growing onions just like this, and you get beautiful onions. And this happened to me one time. I pulled them out, and I thought, well, they grow in the sun, so they should be fine to dry in the sun. And I pulled them out, and I just left them in the sun. It was 90 degrees or something. Basically, a couple of days of that, your onions are cooked. They won't be any good. They'll get sunburned, they'll rot. So that was very disappointing. So you have to be careful, because when you then pull the onion out of the ground, that's it. You're killing it. You're cutting off the circulation, everything. So it has no way to protect itself anymore. If you put it in 90-degree sun, you're gonna burn it. So what I do is to lay the tops, kind of the green tops, you lay an onion down, and then you take another onion and lay the green tops over the bulbs. Basically, you just don't want the bulbs to be exposed. So I lay them on the ground for a few days. I make sure that the bulbs are not exposed to the sun. After a few days, I can collect them, and I cut the tops off, I cut the roots off, and I lay them individually somewhere to let them dry out. keep in mind that sweet onions are not particularly adapted for storage. So let's say I harvested my onions back in May, and I still have some onions. So this is June, July, August, September, 4 months. 4 months is about the outside of sweet onions, storing sweet onions. I can expect them to start going bad pretty soon. But right now, they're just in my garage, as is all my garlic. It's not that particularly cool, but it is dry, and there's not a lot of light in there. And I try to keep things separated so they're not bumping up against one another. And it seems to work. Well, folks, I don't know if I touched on everything. I hope I did. I'm sure we have a lot of questions. And there's a couple of, as we go through the questions, I'm going to put up a couple of sheets for some of the other resources that we have. Here's one for the Alameda County Master Gardener Program. In case you don't know, I also want to put in a quick plug right now for October 3rd at 10 a.m. We'll be doing another presentation for cool season gardening. So check out the website for that. Well, I think we can start with questions.
Okay, so we have, starting with garlic, do you cut off the scapes? If so, when?
All right. Scapes, I believe, are only from HardNeck garlic. And I shouldn't get scapes usually, I don't think, because garlic's biennial, just like an onion. But people grow them for scapes. I don't. I grow them for onions. And if I have a scape, I just leave it alone. It doesn't really affect the plant that much.
Okay, and the next question, what type of soil is best for growing garlic?
Honestly, any kind of soil. And I don't mean to be flippant about that. Garlic is pretty tough, okay? If you get garlic, you get a clove of garlic and you stick it in some soil, if that soil is anything, if you can grow anything in any soil, you can grow garlic, I think. So, and for master gardeners, we like to grow our soil. So my soil is always amended, and I always add compost to it, and I always do things. But if you're just starting out, really, and you want to grow garlic, I wouldn't worry too much about your soil. Any kind of decent soil will work.
We actually had a quick question about what are scapes? What are garlic scapes?
Honestly, I wasn't even going to get into that because I don't grow garlic for scapes. I grow garlic for the bulbs. But the scapes are just, my understanding, scapes are just seeds. The seed stalk.
Okay. And moving on to onions.
Okay.
Can we grow the onions from seed in Livermore?
Absolutely.
Okay. And next question, what is the tastiest onion variety to grow?
Well, I recommend a couple of varieties. I recommend a variety called Candy, C-A-N-D-Y. I recommend a variety called Zoe, Z-O-E-Y. I recommend those because those are tried and proven for this area. I grow those every year. Again, there's nothing in this presentation about where to buy your stuff, okay? But personally, I buy my own seeds online, and I happen to get my seeds from Johnny's because they're very good about distinguishing short day, intermediate day, and long day. So I get my seeds from Johnny's. And if I buy seedlings, which this year I'm just growing all my own seedlings, but in the past, always every year I buy some seedlings, and you can get those in nurseries usually, but you can get those online too. And one of the sources that I like to use just for myself is Dixondale. And they're just, again, they're wonderful. That pretty much all they do is onions. So, and their website has a lot of information about growing onions as well. So I don't, as a master gardener, I don't recommend any one place over another, but I'm just telling you where I buy my stuff, okay? Next question.
Okay. We have a question about planting bulbils. It's bulbils, which come from flowers.
Don't know anything about that. Never heard of it. Sorry.
Okay. And then the next question is, what about shallots? Someone had purchased the shallots like garlic, and they were disappointed to learn that the sets were not good for growing for the bulbs, and they purchased it from a nursery that they had trusted. Have you tried growing shallots?
Yeah. Okay. Unfortunately, this is garlic and onions, and I'm not real experienced with shallots. I have not grown shallots myself, so I really can't steer you any better on shallots. Sorry.
Okay. There's a question about how wet should I keep the soil for growing garlic?
Not wet. Well, let me just say this. Okay. Again, treat your onion like you would any other plant. So ask yourself, how wet should I keep my tomatoes? How wet should I keep my carrots? How wet? So no different. Okay. You don't want sitting water anywhere in a garden, whether you're growing onions or anything. You always want to have well-drained soil. For any type of vegetable, I think that's appropriate. So, and definitely for onions, you don't want your onions sitting in water. So.
And is direct sun okay?
Absolutely.
Or do we need to keep it in partial shade, or is there a temperature limit to maintain?
No, I think direct sun is fine. Yep. Just make sure that after you pick your onion, you're careful with it after that.
Okay, I have someone saying that they want to grow garlic in a planter box, like 4 feet by 4 feet by 4 feet. Should they use potting soil mix or garden soil? And if using compost, what's the ratio for the soil and compost?
Okay, ratio I won't get into, but if you have a planter box, you can use, I like to use potting soil. Or you can actually buy raised bed soil. If you buy bagged garden soil, that's okay too. Any of that stuff works fine, especially for raised beds.
Okay.
Did I answer the question?
Yeah, I think you did. The next question is, can we start from seed? Is it too late to start from seed?
Well, again, you saw my seedlings, so I started those about almost 2 weeks ago. So I'm going to say it's not too late to start from seed, but here's what you have to keep in mind. It's not too late because you won't be successful. What you're going to run up against is pushing your onion crop out into your summer crop. So if you want to plant onions now, where you're going to plant corn in the spring, you have to keep in mind that your onions are not going to be done till mid-May. And the later you plant that onion, so if you started seeds now, then you get your thing out into the garden, you might even be pushing it out into June, you see. So the later you get started, the later your crop will be pushed into your summer crop. I think right now it's okay to still plant from seed.
Okay, next question. What other veggies can you grow next to onions?
Oh, well, I don't know because this is, you know, we're onions. I don't grow anything next to my onions particularly. I keep them sort of separated. I did do an experiment one year where I had onions in a raised bed, and I wanted to get a jump start because I couldn't pick my onions. They weren't ready yet, but I wanted to plant my pepper plants. So I put the pepper plants in next to the onions, and they did not do very well at all. They did not like that. And I don't have that information in front of me, but I know I've come across it in the past where it's not generally recommended to do a lot of companion planting with onions. Some plants don't like them.
Okay, next question. Do you recommend adding fertilizer prior to planting onions or garlic?
Yeah, absolutely, especially if your soil's not real good. So, and again, that's going to be just like any other plant. My onions, sometimes I'll put fertilizer in the ground before I plant the onions and just kind of let that blend into the ground a little bit. If you have a lot of confidence in your soil, if you grow your soil, if you maintain your soil, you don't have to do a lot of fertilizing. Onions are not fertilizer hogs per se, but they certainly react well to having a good diet.
Okay. Can we eat the greens of the thinned onions? What about eating the green part of the big bulb of the onion?
Well, yeah, that's just called green onion.
Okay, next question. Do you recommend direct sowing onion seeds or only starting in pots?
Either way, you're going to have to pull them up because they're all going to be close together. So whether you sprinkle some seeds directly on the ground or you sprinkle them in a pot, when all those seedlings grow, you're going to have to pluck them out and transplant them one by one, 8 inches apart. Okay. So, yes.
Okay, and what are some good varieties of onions that last a long time in storage?
Okay, that I don't have the information for, but not the sweet type. It's like, I think the Spanish onions maybe, but if you look online when you're ordering something, usually you can get that information. I don't mess with storage onions. I only grow sweet onions, and those usually last 3 to 4 months.
Okay, can I plant onions where I just had lavender?
Oh, sure, I don't see why not.
Okay, and what is the dripper spacing and drip rate for your single drip line? And are there differences between California early and California late onions?
Well, that's garlic, and one is earlier, ripens earlier than the other. That's the only real difference. Irrigation is a personal preference for people. depending on your growing conditions and your garden and everything. My setup, I run that one line, that's 5/8 inch drip line, drip emitters spaced every 12 inches. And that's all it takes. One drip line, space emitters every 12 inches. Flow rate is about a gallon per hour.
Okay, next question. If I put onion seedling in November, planting them, by when will they be mature?
Okay, May or June, mid-May to early June. Depends how big your onion's gonna get. Like my 3-pounders, they take a little longer. So they go almost to June before they flop over. And I've had other onions that I've planted in December that can mature in mid-May.
Okay, I think those are all the questions.
Here's one thing that nobody asked, and I didn't really talk about it, but I just want to mention it real quick. What if you plant an onion and all of a sudden you go out there one day and you see that stalk start to grow? And that means your onion's going to seed, and that means that you're not going to get a bulb. All right. I've done a little bit of trial on this, particularly last year. I haven't done a lot of trial on it, but I've done some. So I've taken some of those plants that start to send up that flower stalk and actually cut that off at the onion, just cut the stalk off. All right, the onion only has one shot. It has one opportunity to send up a stalk to grow onions, to grow seeds. If you cut that stalk off, it doesn't say, oh, I lost my stalk, I need to send up another stalk. It really doesn't know what to do. So my experience from last year was when I cut that stalk off, that onion then changed its mind and said, well, if I can't grow seeds, I'm gonna revert back to growing a bulb. And it actually did. It actually started to grow a bulb again. Now, the thing you have to remember is if you do that, and even if your onion ends up growing a bulb, you're still gonna have the seed stalk that goes down through the center of your onion. So there'll be a hardcore part in the center of your onion. The rest of the onion is really perfectly fine to eat. And I just discard that center stalk. The rest of the onion is perfectly fine. So if you plant onions and if your onions start to go to seed, you can try and cut that stalk off and see what happens. You might be pleasantly surprised.
Okay, and last question. What happens if I pull my onion before it flops over? Will that affect the taste?
No, it's a good question, because if you plant if you have a lot of onions, you don't have to wait till they plop over. You can really go out there and pick an onion any time, any stage that you want it to. You're just not going to have the meat in it, that's all. But it's definitely edible. Well, where are we at? Oh, 4:59. So there's no more questions, Connie?
Maggie.
So thank you, everyone. If that's the end of the questions, we appreciate your attendance today. Please join us on October 3rd, 10 a.m. for the next speaker talk on cool season growing or cool season gardening. And you can find that link on our website. Thank you, everyone, for attending today.
And remember, intermediate day onions, intermediate day.
Yes, intermediate day, or Guy will hunt you down.
That's right.
Co-host, let's stick around and thank you, everyone.
Thank you everyone for attending. It's really been a pleasure. I'll be right back.
I think you can stop recording now, Connie.
Oh, you're right. I keep forgetting.